Zone 7? Oh, we don't have any. I guess we have everybody in here now. So we'll go back to Zone 1.
Mr. Buffett, salutations from Portugal. I am from Portugal. My name is Herculano Furtado. I have been the shareholder of your company since it was traded on the NASDAQ. And I hold the shares and went on accumulating year after year whenever funds were available and were at my disposal. Now, a little bit about my history. As a student, I am from India. I was born in India, of Indian parentage, and my parents were very modest and could not afford me higher education. I started my school.
I think maybe you better just get to the question, though, if you will, please. Yeah.
And then started writing insurance, life insurance for a company which was a subsidiary of American Life. My question now is this. I am now living in Portugal, and I see that the European market is developing, and Berkshire Hathaway is having a very big slice of insurance investments. They don't seem to be operating in the new markets that are emerging in Europe, and as well as in countries like India or the Pacific area, where the two-thirds of human beings are living. Is there a policy or a plan on the part of Berkshire Hathaway to diversify and internationalize their insurance business? This is my only question.
Thank you. The reinsurance business of Berkshire Hathaway is totally international. I mean, we deal with risks all over the world. We deal with companies all over the world, and that's the nature of the reinsurance business generally, although there might be some that would be more specialized to this country. But we are quite willing to take on risks around the world, although they have to be risks with a large premium. I mean, that's the nature of our reinsurance business. We're not in the retail end of the business, but we do that worldwide, and we'll continue to do that worldwide because there are huge risks that exist for primary insurers around the world, and they need somebody to lay them off on. Now, whether they will pay the proper price is another question, and it may be a little more difficult in a few jurisdictions to do business than others, but that's an international operation. GEICO has 2.5% of the U.S. auto market, and we have about 2.5 million policyholders. There are over 100 million in the country, and there is such an opportunity here that it would be diversionary to go into other countries with GEICO. There's been a firm that was very successful over in England that introduced a somewhat GEICO-like operation about 10 years ago, and they did very well. They are now encountering more competition, and their results are falling off somewhat. But there's a huge potential for GEICO in this country, and I would not want the management of GEICO to be going off in other directions now when there's so much to be done here. I mean, 3 percentage points on our growth rate here, for example, would be 75 million or so of volume, and that in turn would keep compounding over time. Well, there's too much to do here before we set up some startup operation around the world, and there are actually various problems in a lot of jurisdictions to run a GEICO-like operation, although I wouldn't say that prevails every place. I mean, there could be opportunities, but the opportunity here in this country is huge, and the management of GEICO is focused. I love focused management. But if you read the Coca-Cola annual report, you will not get the idea that Roberto Goizueta is thinking about a whole lot of things other than Coca-Cola, and I have seen that work time after time. And when they lose that focus, as actually did Coke and Gillette both at one point 20 to 30 years ago somewhat, it shows up. I mean, two great organizations were not hitting their potential 20 years ago, and then they became refocused. And what a difference it makes. It makes tens of billions of dollars worth of difference in terms of market value. Geico actually started, they started fooling around in a number of things in the early 80s, and they paid a price to do it. They paid a very big price. They paid a direct price in terms of the cost of those things, because they almost all worked out badly, and then they paid an additional price in the loss of focus on the main business. That will not happen with the present management. Tony Nicely thinks about nothing else but carrying the Geico message to people that 97.5% or so that are not policyholders, and that will work very well for us over time. Charlie?
We are indirectly in all of these emerging markets through Coca-Cola and Gillette. So it isn't true that we're totally absent.
No, well, at Coca-Cola, the international markets are 80% of profits, actually a little more. Gillette, I think they're about 70% or so. So we love the international aspects of the Coca-Cola or Gillette businesses, and that's a very major attraction. But the management of those companies is focused on that. But they have distribution systems, and they have recognition, and they've got a lot of going for them over there. But the beauty of it is that they're maximizing what they do have going for them, which was not the case 20 years ago. They just sort of let it go more by default, and they started fooling around with a lot of diversification. And basically that has not worked that well. So we like focus. We love focus.
Yeah, and doing it indirectly as we've done, one can argue that we thereby do it a lot better.
We won't explore the implications of that.